Whoa! That lighting sucks! Whoa, why is it so light? Oh, well. It's a whole lot of sunlight, which I'm told is a good thing. We'll see. We will see. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Evolve Sport and Nutrition and our live stream. Where's my coffee? Okay, so that's a little hot. That's unreasonable. Buenos dias, mis amigos. I'm just joking. How's everyone doing? This is Ben from Evolve Sport and Nutrition. Welcome back to another episode of our live stream show here on Wednesday. Today's episode, we are talking about what to eat before a marathon and long distance runs. What to eat before a marathon and half marathons. And specifically because the Goodlife Toronto Marathon is happening this weekend. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about my experience and why I'm not running this year while I'm cooking dinner. I'm cooking sushi tonight. But I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But before I do, I want to quickly acknowledge thank you so much for watching, first and foremost. The subscribers are going up. The views are going up. That's all wonderful. I'm very, very grateful for each and every one of you. I don't care if I'm streaming to a handful of people or whatever. I just like the fact that I'm able to do this and I'm able to talk about sports nutrition in a way that's a little bit more accessible to more people. That's really what this whole streaming thing is all about, is basically how you can get nutrition recommendations or advice, guidelines, considerations from a sports dietitian, so that you can do better on your sports, your athleticism, working with your health and all that kind of stuff. So very, very happy and grateful that a lot of you are showing up, rewatching it. That's the part that blows my mind. After I go live, it's like a handful of people for the first two ones, like probably 5, not gonna lie. Numbers are, decently slow, but of course viewership picks up after a while. But it's the idea that I'm getting a ton of rewatches, which is wild to me. It's like, I think the last one hit like 52 rewatches. And I'm like, that's a 3-hour stream. So, very grateful for everyone there. Very, very grateful. And another thing too, for those of you that do not know, this month, the month of May, is Asian Heritage Month. I don't know when it started. I should have looked that up before the stream started in order to sound smart, but you know me, I don't care about that kind of crap. It started a while ago. It's been in effect for quite some time. May is Asian Heritage Month. So this month I am only going to be cooking recipes that are Asian or Asian inspired, Asian adjacent, whatever you want to call it. Today we are cooking sushi because it's one of my favorite things to do, and it's a lot of fun, and hopefully I could teach some of you how to do sushi. Now, that being said, I am not a sushi expert. It takes years and years and years of that. I remember watching the Netflix documentary, Hero Dreams of Sushi, and learning about like the process and how intense it is to become a sushi chef and all that kind of stuff. So how you have to like wash dishes at a sushi restaurant for like a year before they'll even let you wash the rice. And then they'll wash the rice for like a year and a half before they'll let you even start touching fish. It's wild. It's wild. So by no means am I a sushi chef. For all the sushi chefs watching and all the people that know how to make sushi properly watching, I apologize way ahead of time. But at the end of the day, it all looks the same in our stomach. So we are making sushi tonight because I want to. That's why. And it's a lot of fun to do. It's very hands-on. It's a lot of fun. And, I get to do a lot of different things and just celebrate Asian heritage. I myself am Chinese. Just so everyone's clear on that, I'm not Japanese, nor Korean. I am Chinese. So take that for what you will. But today's episode, I am making sushi. And for the rest of the month, I will be focusing on some of my favorite Chinese dishes, Asian dishes, whatever you talk about, and hopefully demystifying a lot of the ingredients and false beliefs out there. Man, like, you don't know how embarrassing it is to be a part of a profession where they are so racist. Dietitians, I mean. They're so racist that they have continued on a lot of false misinformation narratives that have fundamentally been racially charged to begin with. Being the MSG kind of narrative, a good colleague of mine, Michelle Jalen, she did a great amount of work demystifying the illusions around how unhealthy MSG is and all that kind of crap, and how it's been like Chinese food in particular has been really, really targeted with MSG and racial profiling and all that kind of stuff. So go take a look at her work. I don't want to redo what she's done. I think she's done an amazing job. So shout out to Michelle. I think she's done an awesome job. She continues to do an awesome job. And right now she's with 2 kids, and she's doing that. So congratulations to you, by the way, Michelle, if you ever get to watch this or re-watch this. But before we get into anything else, I always have to do this disclaimer because people just are not cool sometimes. They're not cool enough with what we're doing. So the disclaimer today, as always, is going to be, this is not official nutrition recommendations. These are not things that you need to follow. These are things that you need to consider about an education, from an education standpoint, because I'm talking about how I work with my athletes, a lot of my runners that are running this weekend. I've been talking about these principles with them and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of them hopefully can rewatch this video if they forgot what I was talking about, which happens a lot because I talk a lot. And for anyone else that's curious about nutrition for marathons and long distance running and all that kind of stuff, that's what we're talking about today. Again, not official recommendations. You need to be a client of mine in order to get official recommendations. But this is just me. This is me promoting nutrition my own way, making it a little bit more accessible. That's why we're doing this. So very, very grateful that I have figured out streaming and my ADHD and my a lot of other stuff that my therapist helped me through that was holding me back, like perfectionism, people pleasing, all that kind of crap. Anyways, we're making sushi today. Very exciting stuff. The reason why I'm excited to do it is because when you make sushi at home, you get to fill it up with literally anything you want, and I really, really am obsessed with this stuff, the imitation crab meat. One of my favorite things in the world. I do acknowledge the fact that it's not real food, whatever the hell that means, but it's pollock. It's not crab meat at all. It's imitation crab meat. They're very, very clear about that. See, imitation crab meat. It's right there on the thing. They're not trying to be crab meat. They're trying to be imitation crab meat. This is the most appealing way I can describe this. This is a seafood hot dog. That's kind of like how it's made. So enjoy that mental quality picture and all that kind of stuff. But I'm making some sushi tonight with a lot of this stuff. So we will get to that in a little bit. Right now what I have to do is clean the rice, wash the rice, and get to work while we're doing this. And I'm going to talk about specifically the Toronto Goodlife Marathon and all that kind of stuff. Why I'm not running this year, the Toronto Goodlife, even though it's literally the start line is a few sorry, this is the difficulty. I try to organize myself by putting stuff into these jars from IKEA to make it look nice. But the challenge ultimately will always be that it's not practical to use these jars in any other way other than an aesthetic kind of way. So I have to measure this out a little bit. And, I'm spilling so much. Okay, let's just do that. Told you I'm not a professional. I'm just doing what I do and just cooking some sushi. So, okay, back to the Goodlife. So the Goodlife Toronto Marathon is happening this weekend, and I did run it last year, and gotta be perfectly honest with you, not impressed with how they organized it. Not impressed at all. It was a very, very, very poorly organized race, in my opinion, and with a lot of issues specifically towards the water on the route on the course, as well as at the end of the course, where it was just basically chaos, to be perfectly honest. There was a lot of chaos last year. It was very, very poorly organized. Everything was done on the honor system, and I don't know... People do not function well with the honor system, in my opinion, because one of the biggest issues last year, and what was like baffling me, was that people treated the finish line food and hydration and all that kind of stuff like a grocery shopping event, because they were just like, here's the stuff that we were supposed to give out, but there's no one to give it out with, and no one to stop people from taking as much as they wanted. So what happened last year was that there was a whole bunch of people that were being, in my opinion, very selfish and taking a whole lot of the food that was meant for the marathon runners and the participants, but they were taking it for themselves and screwing everyone over. Could you imagine, like, I think partway through, like, I ran the half last year, and like I said, it was a tough course, not because of the way the course is designed, but because of how poorly organized it was. Like, all of the water stations were at very, very, very dangerous spots, in my opinion. They were at spots where there was a lot of, like, meridians. I don't know what you call the center kind of thing. The you know, the cement things that separate the street from the road and all that kind of stuff. There was a lot of that, and like the water stations were all around that. So to me, I'm like, that's a huge tripping hazard. Huge tripping hazard. And they were, all the water stations kind of just like funneled all the runners into one spot. And the challenge is that a lot of newbie racers, they don't know that you're not supposed to stop right there and drink and just like go, right? You're supposed to keep moving, because it becomes a hazard, especially when it's bottlenecked in. So there was a lot of points during the race where you either had to just skip the water station to keep going and avoid that madness, or you had to just stand there and wait for water because nobody else was like caring about what you are supposed to do. So it was poorly organized from a water standpoint last year, but also toward the finish line, and this is the biggest challenge, there was like probably 10 meters from the actual finish to where like all the friends and family gathered and all that kind of stuff. Now, the problem is, because I created such a crowd toward the finish line, there were so many people finishing the race but couldn't cross the finish line because there was a backlog of people trying to shift through the finish line, right? So the challenge ended up being like people that were chasing PBs, people that were trying to you know, have a really good marathon record, what they were training for like for months on end. They didn't get to do that because it was fundamentally dangerous and overcrowded at the end, because you know how people be. They just kind of hoard and they crowd certain things, right? So that, combined with a poor organization of like, okay, you can't get water if you needed to save your life, because no one was giving that out. They were just like, here's the wide open area at the CNE, and here's crates of it. People were just taking literally crates of water and hydration and food and carrying it out with the 5 and 10K finishers. That's ridiculous, because you're screwing over the marathon and the half marathon finishers. Could you imagine finishing a marathon and a half marathon and not having any hydration afterwards? Like, that's a disaster. That's a liability. And I think people were actually falling down and like going to the hospital last year because of that kind of stuff, because there was no hydration, there was no planning. So this year I'm not going, even though the organizers did acknowledge how poorly run it was, and that they're going to do better. Now, in my opinion and my experience, I don't trust when people say things. I trust when people do things, right? There's a lot of trauma associated with that. So this year I opted not to do that. But also because it would have interfered with my bodybuilding goals, because know who was following me on Insta, but I've been posting a lot of workout photos and all that kind of stuff with weightlifting, especially because I've been going through a kind of a physique rebuild kind of thing, right? Over the last few years, I had lost a lot of lean muscle mass because of COVID. I think that's a case for a lot of people. But after COVID, and I should say not COVID because COVID's still around, but after lockdowns lifted and we're no more, and we're at a point where we can actually manage stuff now. The challenge with that was that it was, oh God, what was, how do I say this? I had a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of social anxiety. I went through a lot of stuff during COVID. I'm not going to talk about every single detail. Not yet. I might not, ever. I'm not too sure, but I will talk about it maybe one day. I don't know. But there was a lot of social anxiety after COVID for me, and the idea of going to a gym, not it. So I used like my condo gym, which had a good amount of like dumbbells. Like, to be fair, my condo gym has like 60-pound dumbbells, which I'd never really seen in a condo gym. Usually condo gyms, and I don't know if this is a regulation kind of thing or whatever, but all the dumbbells go up to like 50 pounds, which is great, but is limiting you in regards to what you want to be, what it was limiting me at least, in what I wanted to do with my physique and my body and my health, right? Because I really wanted to rebuild a lot of lean muscle mass because it gets harder to build lean muscle mass as you age. So I really wanted to focus in on that now that I'm over the hill, so to speak, and building lean muscle mass is much, much more difficult. So I wanted to take the time between February and like now to really focus on just building lean muscle mass instead of cardio. What I'm hoping to do is later on this year register for the Toronto Waterfront, the TSC Marathon. Actually, sorry, not marathon, half marathon. I want to register for that because that is a well-organized event. It's a lot of hype. It's at a great time of the year, October. I think that's really, really cool. And I really want to take that training seriously this year. Like, every single time I've run a half marathon, I've been kind of able to get away with a lot of like bad habits when it comes to training. This time I really want to lock in. So like, what my goal was half the year focusing on bodybuilding, doing a good bulk, doing a good cut, which I'm in the middle of right now. Video coming out later, by the way, on what a cut is and how I do it and how I approach it. But I want to go through a cut, which I'm going through right now, and that's where I'm focusing a little bit more on fat loss, but not necessarily on the performative aspect of nutrition and physical activity put together, sports nutrition, right? So that's essentially why I'm not running. I have decided I'm not going to really enter training until like June, July for the half marathon, because I really want to take it seriously 3 months out and create a whole lot of content and farm content around that. So you will be seeing me running again competitively again this year, but not anytime soon. I just want to focus on making sure that my clients and everyone out there, the information is out there to support people in this endeavor. And again, it's not me talking shit, and I hope, you know, the Goodlife people don't think I'm talking shit about their race. I think it's a good thing that there is one positioned at this point in time of the year, but I do think, with all due respect, you need to get your shit together in regards to organization. If I see a better organized race this weekend, I'll consider it next year. But prove yourself. Don't talk, just do. That's it. The best apology is not words. That words without action is just manipulation. So, to everyone at the Goodlife organizing committee, you've been put on notice by me, Ben. So, that being said, that's why I'm not running this year, because it was a gong show last year, and I don't want to deal with it. But I do live along the race line, so I have a couple of ideas of like boards and like cheering that I want to do. So without revealing where I'm going to be, because I don't want to get doxxed by anyone or anything like that, hopefully a lot of people see me this weekend while I'm cheering for you on Sunday. And hopefully Bruce will be chill enough to be there too, for anyone that's like curious and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's what my plan is this weekend, and I'm going to see what the reviews are and what the Twitter sphere or X sphere is like saying about the waterfront and all that kind of stuff, and seeing what the finish line is. And if they're good about it, next year you got my vote. I mean, not vote, but you got my participation. I will run you again. But that's why I'm not doing it right now. That's a little bit of the intro about like why I am bowing out, because it's counterintuitive to my athletic goals, but also I just need to make sure my body's in tip-top shape. Because what happened post-go, I did run one half marathon, and that made my body feel like crap afterwards because I didn't have enough muscle to do it. So, and when I start making the half marathon training videos and sharing a little bit more about my workouts and my philosophies and all that kind of stuff, it'll make a little bit more sense. But right now, no serious running until summer. Any kind of running right now that is in my Instagram stories and all that kind of stuff, it is specifically to focus on my aerobic fitness, my VO2 max, and just make sure my legs are nice and limber, right? I'm going through a bulk, putting on lean muscle mass, getting strength in my legs, and it kind of works against itself if you're running long distances and trying to do a lot of heavy squats and heavy deadlifts and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. By the way, I did hit a PR on my deadlift the other day. It's a good PR for me as a runner, so I don't want to hear shit. But I hit 200 pounds. Yay me. Alright, so we're washing the rice right now. And I'm going to show you what the rice looks like. Or the water looks like. To the point where I think I'm done with it and all that kind of stuff. Before, you know, whatever. But, like I said, if Euro Dreams of Sushi is accurate, then people learn to do this for about a year and a half after learning how to wash dishes for a year and a half. So, what I'm going to do is fill up with a little bit of water right now, and then show you what the clarity looks like so that it's going to be a little bit better. So, this is the sushi rice in the water. You see how clear that is after mixing it up? That's really clear. So that's what we're looking for, right? We're looking for a little bit of clarity and all that kind of stuff in the water so that your rice, when you cook it, it doesn't clump together. That's the most important thing. Sushi rice is really, really cool because it's just like when you cook it, it is just little individual grains and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't clump together. That's because you need to wash your rice. Now, when I say wash the rice, does that mean rice is dirty? No, it does not mean rice is dirty. But what it does mean is that during the shipping process, there's a lot of friction of the rice, like grinding together. So you get a lot of rice powder, a lot of rice dust, so to speak. And what that rice dust does is that's just extra starch that clings together with all the other rice particles and all that kind of stuff. And it makes it harder to get a nice sushi product at the end of the day. So we are using 2 cups of this guy, which is the included rice measuring tool that comes with my Instapot. Very cool. So we're using 2 cups of rice, and then the ratio of water to sushi is about 1-to-1, I believe. So that's what we're doing right now. And if you're hardcore like me, you've got this stuff on hand. Now this is dried seaweed. That's different than the nori sheets. This dry seaweed is really, it's like kelp. It is essentially kelp. That's what it is. So look. This is what we're using. And what this is kelp, like I said. And what we're going to do is just rinse it off real quick. And we're just going to plop this in with the sushi rice. And we're going to cook it together so that the kelp can get some umami flavor in the actual rice itself while it's cooking. So I'm going to go over the rice thing. We're going to cook it. And then we're going to start chopping up vegetables. I'm going to start talking about carb loading and nutrition and stuff like that. you know, the stuff you actually came here for. All right. Rice. Where's the rice button? There we go. I hit the rice button. Don't know if you can see that for 12 minutes. So that's what we're gonna do. And here's the thing about the Instant Pot. It's ready. Okay, so that's cooking. It's doing its thing. I'm going to set up for the cutting board and all that kind of stuff, cut up the vegetables, prep up the vegetables, and all that kind of stuff while talking about the nutrition side of things. For those of you that are patient enough to hear me ramble about why I'm not doing the race myself, but I will be cheering. So, today for the sushi, we have avocados, and we have the fake fake imitation crab meat. And the reason why we only have those two things is because I was going to be like getting the cucumbers, but really, I don't like cucumbers in my sushi. It just feels weird. I'm like, you belong in a salad, bro. What are you doing in my sushi? This is the best part about making your own sushi. You can do whatever you want and you can fill whatever you want with it. So, yay for that, I guess. All right. So, that was the intro. Watch this, watch this, watch this. Right below. Right there. Right at the bottom. Watch this. We're going to... Damn it. I don't have enough ability to whatever. Okay. So I'm sure a lot of you are coming by the stream and thinking like, oh, cool, we're going to learn all about carb loading. Are you, though? Because I actually am not a fan of carb loading. So let's talk about what carb loading actually is first and foremost and how you can actually do it. There's two different ways of doing carb loading, believe it or not. There is the accelerated way and then the normal way. The normal way, I'll just use myself as an example here. What the normal way is you are going through, it's a 6-day process first and foremost. So you have to have begun it already. And you know, it's not an easy ordeal because what happens is it's divided into 2 phases. The first phase, which is 3 days, is carb deprivation. So that is the days where you're going very, very low carb on your nutrition and you are trying to deplete as much glycogen from your body and your active muscle groups as possible. So it's kind of sucky in the sense where you are working out still, but you're not properly eating carbohydrates afterwards. So you get tired, you get cranky, you get miserable. And the reason why you need to do that part is so that the loading phase can actually absorb more of the carbohydrates in. So what you're doing is you're restricting carbs, essentially. You're reducing them for about 3 days. You're going very, very, very low carb. And then afterwards, the 3 days, after those 3 days, you're in the second phase where you're actually now in the carb loading phase. So after the carb restriction phase comes the carb loading phase. The carb loading phase is so high in terms of the carbohydrate content that it's actually ridiculous if you're not an elite athlete. If you're not an elite trainer or elite runner or elite, endurance athlete and all that kind of stuff, I don't entertain this discussion with my clients because for me, as an example, I've done it one time. You have to hit 600 grams of carbohydrate per day. That is so much carbs, man. It makes you feel well, for me at least, I'm speaking from my own experience, made me feel physically ill. Like, that's so much carbs that it's not fun anymore. Like it used to be before where it's like, oh yeah, look at all these donuts, look at all this soda that I'm having and all that kind of stuff. This is great. But after a while, it gets you physically sick to the point where I find that there's a lot of actual physiological hormonal shifts that happen during that period of time, especially because you're supposed to be at peak conditioning, peak shape and all that kind of stuff. So what you're doing is you're depriving 3 days, you're loading up 3 days. For myself, I would be targeting about 600 to 700 grams of carbohydrate per day. That's insane. And here's the issue of it all. You're doing that 600 grams of carbohydrate per day so that your body can absorb and hold on to an extra 50 to 100 grams. That's terrible return on investment, in my opinion. Like, why? Why bother doing that? It doesn't make sense. The other thing I point out to all my runners too is that if we're talking about carb loading, we need to be honest about the fact that, we weren't carb loading throughout the training, right? One of the biggest things to know about running is that on race day and your distance run day, you're trying to do as little new things as possible. So no brand new shoes, no brand new clothes, no nothing. You're supposed to do the same thing over and over and over again, because guess what? When you're running for that length of a period of time, you don't want any new variable to enter your race plan whatsoever. That is a disaster all the time. So you want to be able to actually practice and rehearse your distance running plan for the race well ahead of the race. Like I say to my clients all the time, every distance run that you have is an opportunity to try out your sports nutrition for race day. That's what the distance run is for. By the way, these avocados suck because I have ADHD and I didn't get avocados early enough in the week to let them ripen, so they are hard right now. So you're just going to need to know that I am not going to love the avocado process in my sushi tonight, but that's okay. We're doing it for the camera. We're doing it for the gram or whatever the hell these kids say nowadays. Yeah, these avocados suck because they're too... whatever. My fault. Anyway, so you're trying to do as little as possible that's new from your distance run days to your race days. And that's going to come back into consideration later on as I keep talking about this. But you're trying to do as little new as possible. If you've never done carb loading for a distance run, doing carb loading for a distance run is an absolute disaster. It's a terrible strategy. We shouldn't do it. I always say to my clients, I'm like, this is not a good idea. So just don't do it. There's a second... Can you tell I have ADHD? The second way of carb loading is extreme. It's extreme. So what you do is this is done for athletes that are in the middle of their training season, for example, that they don't have a lot of time to like take off and taper and all that kind of stuff. What they would do is that they would train hard and intense. And this is but what they would do is the day before the race, they would have a very, very hard workout and not have, a few days before the race, they would have a very, very, very hard workout and just basically binge carbohydrates. So, I was saying like 600 grams before, it'd be double that on a day where you'd have an extremely hard workout and then you'd have 1,200 grams of carbohydrates immediately afterwards. That's for me. And like, my weight right now, I think it's like 165 pounds lean. So, that's not a fun task because there's a lot of issues that come with that much carbohydrate intake. Doing it all in one sitting, it's binge eating. Like, let's be honest here. Let's be real. It's just binge eating. That's not recommended whatsoever, right? And then the second thing to take into consideration with that too is that your body, I don't know if anyone's eaten that amount of carbohydrates before. I certainly have. You feel like trash. Like, I felt so bad when I did that before my marathons in my early 20s and all that kind of stuff. Felt terrible. I felt absolutely terrible. Couldn't sleep the night beforehand. I didn't actually run any better. That was the worst thing because like the next day I felt like I had been... I just feel sluggish. It just didn't feel good. So I'm not a fan of carb loading. Largely because, I don't use it during regular training, during my distance runs and all that kind of stuff. And to be real, if you're carb loading for a half marathon, it's kind of no, don't do it. Because, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to come down on anyone right now, but it's overkill for a half marathon. It so is overkill. Like, marathon distance is the shortest distance I would say for people to even consider carb loading, and then I discourage them out of it. Because the reality is, on the day of the race, what you're trying to do in order to finish the race and do well is you're trying to pace yourself according to what you've been training for distance. Maybe just push yourself up a little bit higher, right? So the predominant fuel source that you're burning on the day of the marathon is actually fat. It's not carbohydrates. So to carb load when you're actively going to use fat as the fuel source makes literally no sense to me. It makes no sense to me. So yes, you can get a little bit more glycogen storage in your body, but to me, it's not worth it because there's so many issues with eating that amount of carbohydrates the day before the race. You feel terrible, or at least I did, speaking to my own experience and all that kind of stuff. I felt terrible before the race. I couldn't sleep properly because the challenge is that when you high carbohydrate intake, specifically at nighttime, blocks melatonin from binding to the cell walls. Melatonin is the hormone that we need to sleep. So the challenge ultimately ends up being, if you can't sleep properly, then you kind of screw yourself over for the distance run the next day, or the race the next day, because, well, let's be honest, it's not the same as a distance run. Because for most people, a distance run, let's say it's Sunday, right? Typically what would happen is you'd wake up, you do the distance run shortly afterwards. If you're meeting with a friend group, a run group, or whatever, you're doing the distance run shortly after you wake up. On a race day, it's nothing like that. On a race day, it's actually closer to a day that you get to work and all that kind of stuff, because you'd have to wake up a lot earlier than normal. You would have to get to the start line and then balance out your food. When you're waking up and then going for a distance run shortly afterwards, you can get away with not eating as much. You just can. On a race day, you can't afford to do that because you are pacing higher than you normally would. A lot of reasons are because of the adrenaline that comes from being in the environment, the atmosphere, and all that kind of stuff. But you're eating differently on a race day, right? So what normally has to happen is that you'd have to have your breakfast and stagger a little bit of your food. It depends on how well you can tolerate breakfast as a big point of discussion, because a lot of people can't have a big breakfast before their actual run and all that kind of stuff. So I don't like carb loading. I just do not like it. Not a fan of it. Don't recommend it. Have never recommended carb loading professionally to any athlete, whether it be a casual athlete, casual marathon runner, or an elite marathon runner. It's just not beneficial in my opinion. It's impractical, and more things are likely to go wrong than anything else. So officially, I do not recommend carb loading. Carb loading is a silly idea. Get it out of your system. I think there are other priorities from a nutrition standpoint that we'll talk about in a little bit that do actually make a better impact on your ability to run the next day. So that being said, no for carb loading. I'm taking a look at the screen right now. No questions in chat. That's okay. Glad the information's here. So we're just going to slow down a little bit. I've got 5 more minutes on the rice. I'm cutting the avocado because I love it. But remember, the avocado sucks. So what I'm going to do with the avocado, I don't know if you can see this very, very well. I'm going to move it so you can see it a little bit better. But okay. So what I like to do with the avocado is like cut it like this. You have to hold your knife at an angle. Just kind of slice it so it's like that. And then that way we can like fan it out a little bit, make it look pretty, that kind of stuff. Oh, that's not a good angle for you. But look, that's kind of what I'm doing with the avocado. Increasing the surface area. It's not too ripe, which means it's going to be hard in the actual sushi, but I can smell the flavors coming off of it. So they smell like they taste good, but they're not cutting as buttery as you'd like an avocado to. And again, thanks ADHD. That was a fun diagnosis. I'm just going to cut this up. Diagonally. I do not have a sushi knife. Not yet. One of these days I will. And it'll be awesome. Because I'll have this Ferrari of a knife and not know how to use it properly. But right now, let's see if we can get a better view on this. We're going angles, and then we're going to push a little bit more in, and this, yeah, that's it. Okay. I think you're seeing it. Are you seeing that? I don't know if you're seeing that. But yeah. Okay, that's the avocado there. What if it were moved this way? I wonder what happened if it moved it this way. Okay. So again, we're going to do this. Oh yeah, it's a little bit better. So you see how I'm holding the knife at an angle and just like slicing through the avocado and then making it as even as possible. Try to make it as pretty as possible so that, you know, later on I could fan them out, or just depending on how I could put them in, I just chunk it up and I put it in. Okay, so there's that. And the last one. All right. So the avocado's cut up. Now, I'm not going to cut up the seafood hot dogs or the imitation crab meat because I like it. I want a thick imitation crab meat in the actual thing. So, yeah. So we're not going to cut it in half, but sushi restaurants typically do. I'm not doing that, just so you know. That's what we're doing. Okay. Where's my rice? I have a bamboo rice paddle. I don't think you need it, but whatever. We're gonna do something in a little bit. Okay. Here we go. Boom. Alright. That is the rice done. So I'm going to go check on that and get my bamboo sheet thing out. But yeah, I hope that was good and convincing. Not a fan of carb loading. I'm going to change it to the night before the race. What you should do the night before the race. Because I do think that that's an important thing to do, to talk about. So, boom, 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 boom. Night before the race, down below. Okay, so in terms of night before the race, I do believe that this is where we can do a lot of different things that really, really help your sleep. Because that is the priority of what to do before a marathon, in my opinion. You're making sure you get a good day's worth of nutrition in. You're making sure you eat well. You're making sure you rest, because, you know, the next day you're going to go through a half marathon or a marathon. So the priority is rest. So how do we get you to do that? So first and foremost, if you have seen my other videos, you'll know how important it is to eat every 3 to 4 hours, specifically something higher in protein. So this is exactly what I would recommend on the day of the race. And of course, throughout the day, we're just kind of adjusting everything as normal, making sure that we're adjusting everything as normal, making sure you get a chance to eat well and sleep well and rest before the ordeal the next day. So how can we do that? How can we actually make sure that the night before you're eating in a way that helps you promote sleep? So very, very quickly, high protein breakfast, keeping your protein intake consistently through breakfast, lunch, and dinner with an afternoon snack and a bedtime snack focused on protein. That's really, really important. And making sure your meals and snacks are separated by 3 to 4 hours. That maintains muscle protein synthesis, allows your body to repair, recover, yada, yada, all that kind of stuff. I'll make a video on that sometime later. But what we're going to do at dinner time, this is the most important thing, and something that I think a lot of people are surprised by when I tell them this, but I usually recommend pizza the night before a marathon. Hear me out. A lot of people go like, I want a big plate of pasta. And I'm like, okay, it's not that that's bad, but to me, the concern with a big plate of pasta is the carb content without the protein, and there's a specific reason why I choose pizza. It's not just a nutritional reason, it's a practical logistic reason. So, let's imagine, for example, that you're traveling for this marathon. You've got traveling from overseas, you're going to run a marathon, all that kind of stuff. I've done it before. It's a great experience. One of the best ways to travel. One of the best ways to see a city. The challenge is ultimately, how do we reduce as many variables as possible to make sure you sleep a good night? No matter where you go, usually speaking, you can get a good pizza. Don't get me wrong. Like, yes, there are differences, like tons of differences between good pizza and bad pizza. In these kind of situations, pizza is going to be pretty reliable no matter what. The reason why is because sometimes in some cities, they close very, very early. Like, I've been to cities where, like, there's no restaurant open past 9 p.m., and that was wild to me. But you could get a delivery pizza. So it reduces the variables. It makes sure that you can get a food that you're familiar with, and that if you're, of course, as long as there's no, like, dietary intolerances or anything like that, you can tolerate very, very well the night before a race. So, that being said, that's why I like to recommend pizza. The second reason I like to recommend pizza is because there's a good amount of cheese on that pizza. That cheese has a lot of casein protein in it. Casein protein breaks down very, very slowly in the digestive system, and that is a good thing the night before a race. The reason why is because the slower the breakdown of the protein, the slower the release of the amino acids in the body overnight, further allowing you to sleep a little bit better. Plus, pizza's fun. Like, it's just fun. But I'm not going to people, I'm not telling my clients to eat, like, a full pizza to themselves. That's insane. I'm telling them to have, like, the carbohydrate portion of their regular meal as pizza. So, for example, if I usually, for dinner, you have, like, 2 or 3 fist-sized servings of carbohydrate. That's, like, 2 to 3 slices of pizza. As a carbohydrate base for there, right? That's usually what I'm telling people to do. And then to also make sure they're hitting their vegetables as well as, most importantly, their protein intake. So I specifically recommend pizza the night before a race because it's easy, it's fast, it's doable, one less variable for you to think about, and usually people like that recommendation. They like it when a dietitian tells them to eat pizza. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? All right. This is the sushi rice. Boom. See the seaweed over here is going to flavor the rice in a very delicious way. And what we're going to do is just break up that rice a little bit. We're going to move it around a little bit. Yeah, 1-to-1 ratio is good. I played around with sushi rice a little bit in regards to like what the ratio of water sushi rice should be. And ultimately, I think a 1-to-1 ratio is good because it allows me to put in like the rice vinegar afterwards, which is this thing right here. Allows me to put it in and adjust the ratios appropriately. So what I'm doing now is I put that rice vinegar in and I'm just cutting and folding the rice. So kind of like how in like pastry, you would fold like a meringue mixture into something heavier to maintain as much air as possible within the pastry thing. You're using the same motion here in sushi because you're not trying to break apart the rice granules. You're trying to keep the rice granules whole and solid, right? You're just distributing the vinegar so that each bit of rice has a good distribution of vinegar. So that's what we're doing right now. Good stuff. No questions in the chat. All right. So we're just going to maintain that a little bit. We're going to let that cool down because it's still hot. And we're going to probably talk about the next thing that we're going to do. Okay. So the night before... Oh, I forgot to mention the hydration thing. Usually the day before a race, I really want to make sure people drink enough water before dinner. Not after, before. What I find a lot of people do typically with their hydration is that they'll forget to drink water throughout the day and then they'll backlog it. So what that means is that, oh crap, they get home, they haven't drank enough water, boom, they're drinking like 2 to 3 liters of water after dinner because they forgot. Now there's a couple different reasons for this. A lot of people do that strategy as a way to prevent nighttime snacking. We'll have a separate stream about that at some other time about like what nighttime snacking actually means and how we can address that from a nutritional perspective. But usually people drink a lot of water at nighttime to prevent themselves from snacking. Big mistake. Big mistake. Because what happens is you're carrying all that extra fluid in your bladder right before you go to bed. So the likelihood that you're actually going to need to wake up in the middle of the night, disturb your sleep, and pee, big mistake. So what I tell people to do is their job the day before the race, day before the marathon, half marathon, is to drink at least 2 to 3 liters of water before dinner. And then drink a little bit more afterwards, but the goal predominantly is to drink 2 to 3 liters of water before dinner. That way what we can really allow the body to do is properly hydrate the day before the marathon or half marathon and flush out the metabolic waste products that, that's what the kidneys and liver do and all that kind of stuff. So you're flushing out all those metabolic waste products before you go to sleep so that you can sleep a little bit better. But also, if we're talking about marathon prep and nutrition prep, drink the water before dinner time. All right? So 2 to 3 liters of water before dinner. Now, another trick too, the night before the marathon, is to have a high protein, low carbohydrate snack before bed. The reason why is because when you're sleeping, your body does the majority of the building and repair of lean muscle mass in the first few hours of sleep. Actually, a lot of people do not sleep very well because their dinner time is too early and from the point in time which they fall asleep. So they won't actually have good sleep because they're eating dinner or something like at like 6 p.m. let's say. 5 p.m. I've heard is a thing for people too. I'm like, that's insane to me as someone that used to, religiously eat dinner at around like 8 to 9 o'clock as a kid. That's because my family had to work. They had to work, and in that regard, my mom came back home. I helped her cook dinner, but she would cook the majority of the dinner and all that kind of stuff. So we would eat dinner relatively late, and there's literally nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, despite what a lot of people think. A lot of people think you shouldn't eat dinner that late. No, it's just what you eat around that point in time, right? So that being said, the water the night before with a high protein snack. My preference for people is Greek yogurt or some sort of high protein dairy. The reason why is, again, you're getting more of that casein protein in overnight, which helps your body build and repair lean muscle mass, and that increases the likelihood that you're going to actually be able to sleep a whole lot better. So creatine before you go to bed, great idea. You can eat, I wouldn't recommend a creatine protein powder, again, because you're mixing it up with a ton of water, you're drinking that down, that's a lot of protein before you go to bed, and too much of one thing is a bad thing. So in that situation, a casein shake before you go to bed is more likely to create that urge of needing to pee in the middle of the night. So the goal is to make sure you sleep well that night so you can wake up feeling good, ready for your race. Sound good? High protein snack before you go to bed. So whether or not that be a high protein cheese, Greek yogurt, Skyro yogurt, just regular yogurt mixed with a little bit of protein powder mixed in. That's what I really recommend to people the night before the actual marathon. So take that for what it is. No to carb loading. Have a high protein. Make sure your protein intake is on target every 3 to 4 hours throughout the day, and make sure hydration is done before dinner. 2 to 3 liters before dinner, and that you're sleeping well. That's what you need to do before the actual marathon, the actual race, because that's what's going to guarantee the best physiological performance out of your body the next day. It's making sure those routines are hit. So that's what you need to do before a race. Not a big fan of the carb loading. Unless you're an elite level athlete, in which case this stream isn't really for you. Just saying. Okay. Let's shift over to morning of race while I start to roll out some of the sushi. Yeah, the rice is nice and cooled down now, so it's looking good. Okay. So, let's talk about the morning of the race. So, this will always depend on what type of person you are. Because there are a lot of considerations before the actual race that need to be taken into consideration. What I mean by that is that if you don't normally eat breakfast in the morning and you're trying to do it before the race, bad idea, not good. Wouldn't recommend that, largely because it's doing something you're not used to, right? So if you haven't eaten breakfast before your distance runs ever, I wouldn't recommend that we start on race day. Again, the goal from a psychological and physiological standpoint before the race is to do everything that your body's already used to doing, not what it's not used to doing. So if you're not used to eating breakfast before a distance run, don't do it here. Don't do it before a race. It's high stakes. You're going to cause a little bit of sabotage. So really, these are practice and rehearsed strategies that we're talking about, that we're trying. Where's the... Forgot to show you the Masago. Okay. So, the morning of the race. So this has to do, now this discussion ends up being more logistical and more practical over everything else. The rice is still a little bit hot, but that's okay. It's moving around pretty good. Before the morning of the race. This is going to depend on how soon you wake up before the race and, of course, what kind of things you're comfortable eating in the morning. Generally, as a rule of thumb, I recommend people use only things that they're familiar with the exception of these kind of guidelines before sport, competition, athletic events. Do not have high-fat foods, do not have high-fiber foods, and don't have dairy. The reason why is because these foods are very, very likely to cause digestive issues during the race. The reality is a lot of endurance athletes struggle with their gastrointestinal symptoms during the race. There's a lot of these things, and it's not pretty. Like, every marathon, you kind of see some guy that kind of craps themselves, for better or worse. And the reason why is because they're eating something, or they're having too many gels, there's too much sugar and all that kind of stuff. So don't do that. Don't do that. It's not good. Nobody wants to see you poop yourself on the racetrack. It's rough. It's a rough thing because I guarantee you, your runner friends and you will make fun of you a lot. So don't do that. A lot of it's going to depend on the practical side of things. So how far you are away from your start line, how comfortable you are eating foods and all that kind of stuff. But typically I get people to stay away from dairy. I get people to stay away from high-fat foods, as well as I get people to stay away from high-fiber foods. The reason why is because these foods are very, very likely to cause gastrointestinal upset in a moving digestive system. So the issue with running is because you're not just running, right? Like, you have to consider what your body is actually going through during the run. You can eat a lot before you walk because the center of gravity in your digestive system, it stays still. Like, but during a run, it's more like you're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That makes it very difficult for the digestive system to work properly. If there is a lot of foods that really slow down your digestion. And again, those foods are high fat foods and high fiber foods, as well as high fat and dairy items. So it's not being like, oh, these foods don't help you run. It's just being like, foods are just foods that have a lot of variables to them, and they could potentially ruin your day. If you crap yourself, especially. So those are the foods I get people to avoid. So make sure you have a good breakfast plan well ahead of time. Typically, I would get people to try to eat like 90 minutes before their race, before their race starts. And it depends how much they can eat. For some clients this week, I had to basically break apart their breakfast into multiple different strategies, where they would eat some carbohydrate, but the focus on the protein at home, and then throughout their transport, like they're driving to the actual race line, I get them to have a little bit more carbohydrate closer to the start because they can tolerate a little bit better then. So that's something to consider, how you're distributing your food out, your carbohydrates and all that kind of stuff. By the way, I'm wetting my hands because it's easier to manipulate the rice with wet hands as opposed to dry hands, because what'll happen is if you only have dry hands when moving around the rice, then what happens is they just ends up getting sticky and clumpy on your actual hands. So I don't want that. I want good rice and all that kind of stuff. So the morning of, we're looking at what is practical for you, what is realistic, and what is doable for you while hitting certain targets, right? The longer your race, the more protein you're going to need in your breakfast. And the reason why is because the protein is really there to help stabilize your blood sugars during the actual race. So you don't rely too much on gels and high sugar products, because during the race, if you have too much of those, then what ends up happening typically is something called fructose-induced gut rot. Fructose-induced gut rot is your body's response to having too much sugar in its system, right? So if you think back to when you were a kid and you had too much candy at Halloween and you felt sick, that's fructose-induced gut rot. So, we're trying to avoid that symptom by not overfeeding you sugar and sugar-based products, which is a lot of those gels, a lot of that kind of stuff during the actual race. So, that's what we're trying to do. Like I said, the longer the distance, the more protein you need to have, because the protein, what that's going to do is help stabilize your blood sugars during the actual race, so your body's not crashing at any given point in time because you're having blood sugar fluctuations during the race or anything like that. So the longer your race, for the marathon people running this weekend, focus on hitting at least 20 grams of protein at breakfast. For the half marathon people, you can get away with a little bit less, but ideally I'd still recommend 20 grams of protein at your breakfast. And again, that's to stabilize your blood sugars during the actual race, so you don't one of my clients loves this term, bonks, where you're having a blood sugar crash during the actual race. So no questions in chat. All right. So that's what I would recommend before. And a good amount of carbohydrate, of course, and distributed properly. So there's a lot of different carbs, and of course the carbs are always going to depend on what you enjoy the most and what works best for you. I would before the race, stay away from more of the high glycemic index carbohydrates, so the carbohydrates that break down too fast into sugar in your body. I had one guy one time, he's like, oh, you said to eat carbs before the race. I'm like, yeah, but not donuts, dude. Donuts is it's too much carb at that point. It's too concentrated. It's all that kind of stuff, and it's not a good choice. So as much as I love donuts, try not to do donuts before the race. It's just not a good vibe. It's not good. It's gonna feel like too much carbohydrate in your stomach. So keep that in mind. So higher proteins for longer distances, for sure. Good strategy to keep in mind. Stabilizes your blood sugar. Now that should be eaten roughly 90 minutes before your start time. And that's important. So depending on what level of runner you are, what skill and all that kind of stuff, they have different waves that you need to kind of say that this is when I'm expecting myself to finish. And during those waves, what will happen is that they'll have staggered start times and yada yada, all that kind of stuff, so that you can actually, so that they can organize the run a little bit better. I didn't see this happen last year. They kind of let us all out of the gate at the same time, which is a gong show, and I really didn't like that. Again, poor organization last year, but I'm hoping everything goes a lot better this year around. They figure it out, everything, because I don't want this race to be bad. I just don't trust it to be good until they do good things. That's just how I am now. I have trust issues. Who can blame me after the situation I've been through? Anyways, back to this. So that is the meal, usually is 90 minutes beforehand. Now it's most optimal if you can eat everything beforehand, but if not, you can stagger it out. Like I've got a guy this weekend that's running. Our plan is to get him to eat just the breakfast at home, the portion of protein at home. So his goal is to have 4 egg whites and 2 egg yolks before he leaves the house, and then to have 1 to 2 bananas on the way there, because he's not too far away from the start line, but far enough so that the commute is something that needs to be considered, right? And that's another thing. You want to plan well ahead in advance what your commute's going to look like on that day, so that you know what the road closures are, you know what to avoid, you know what routes to take, you know if there's an Uber that you need to take and all that kind of stuff. Those are all very, very important things that you plan out before the actual race morning instead of at the actual race morning. So try to keep that in mind. We are doing sushi. Sorry, this is like fun to me. And, I'm having a blast making California rolls, essentially. Because I love it. I think it's so tasty. Oh. Okay, that's before the run. Now, I see a lot of people lately, they've been doing like a quick gel shot right before their actual run starts. I don't think that's personally the best idea, to be perfectly honest, because that's a lot of sugar like right as you're about to start. And the reason why I don't think that's the best idea is because there's something called rebound hypoglycemia. So that is the event where at the beginning of your exercise, usually speaking, what happens is your body absorbs a lot of blood sugars into your muscles before re-releasing them back into your body for physical activity, right? Basically, your body's panicking a little bit. It's like, oh, hold on, is this what we want to do? And once you start hitting your stride, it gets to a point where your body relaxes. It's like, okay, I get what's happening right now. And it starts releasing those same blood sugars back. The rebound hypoglycemia part is if you overconsume the carbohydrates and you're having a blood sugar spike and then a drop toward the end of it, then that drop could leave you low in terms of blood sugar, and then at the beginning of that physical activity, you can re-drop again. So I don't typically recommend getting the gel in before the actual start line, because, of course, you're trying not to leave the gates too hot. You're trying not to like sprint out the gates and all that kind of stuff. And that's a hard thing to do. This is where you know the real runners that have worked on their mental game than anything else, because you want to start slower to kind of gauge where everything's at, what your body's feeling and all that kind of stuff, and then speed up. So start slower in the beginning. That is generally what a lot of run coaches recommend, I think. That way you can avoid having that gel right away. Again, too much sugar can create something called fructose-induced gut rot. Not ideal at all. Like, not good. It's not the vibe. So, I would not do a gel before the actual start. But I would consider a carbohydrate snack, like a slow breakdown carbohydrate snack, like a banana or something like that. Probably 45 minutes before the actual wave start. So think about that. So you would have your protein and carbs, whatever you could do for your breakfast, 90 minutes before your actual start time. And then you would do a carbohydrate-based snack that will break down a little bit slower, about, let's say, Oh. 45 minutes before the actual race, and then you would just like leave it at that. That's what you would do. So, that being said, that's what you would do morning of the race. So, glad that's happened. This is going to be a thick sushi because there's a lot more rice in here compared to the rest of them. But that's okay. We love a thick sushi. We love a thick sushi. Okay. All right. All right. So we have that going on right now. Nothing in chat. All right. We're still rolling. Okay. So put that there now, and then I'm going to roll this up. So the rolling strategy is adopted from another life skill I have that I don't think I can say on YouTube. But if you know, you know. You just want to roll this up. You want to press everything together. And then you want to seal it with a little bit of water. And there you go. You have your sushi. Booyah! That is 5 sushi rolls. Awesome. I'm going to put this away. And we're going to plate this up and eat it. Because, you know, it'd be insane if we didn't eat it. So this is why I love sushi, because it's basically like, to be honest with you, it's kind of like a sandwich in the sense where you get to put it together however you want. You get to pick your own ingredients and all that kind of stuff. I don't do the raw fish, the salmon, the sashimi, or anything like that, largely because it is expensive, and I love the imitation crab meat that much. I really, really do. It's gross, and I'm a big fan of it. I'm a big, big fan of it. So, that's why we're only doing imitation crab meat. And then for the sushi, put the avocado in here. Hope that gets softer and more ripe as we go on. I can eat with it, but yeah, that's what we're doing. So, that is before the race. Not a lot of questions. That's all right. Now, I have a little bit of a bonus kind of talk for you. You know, for the people here. It's not just what to eat before. I figured might as well talk about what to eat after the actual race itself. And the reason why is because I think this is where a lot of people go wrong. And this is where, especially with this one race in particular, because of how bad it was last year, I really have to be making sure that people carry, you know, not to pass on my trust issues to people here, but it's just to be like, okay, if you're prepared, good, great, awesome, good. I'm getting people, all my clients, to make sure that they have their post-workout nutrition plan and a good big bottle, like a 1.5 liter bottle of water in their check-in bag at the start line. And the reason why is, let's say the organizers do another whoopsie, which I hope they don't. I really genuinely, again, cannot stress this enough. I hope they don't. But in the case that they do, you're prepared, right? So have your post-workout nutrition plan, whether it be your protein powder, your protein bars, whatever it is that you do to recover from your workouts, your distance workouts, and then so your bases are covered. Because if it's anywhere close to last year, then the likelihood is that you might not get your water, you might not get protein, you might not get the snacks that you need, the bananas and all that kind of stuff. So pack that all ahead of time in the check-in bag, so that when you get to the part of the race where you're done, you get to get your bag, you can just mix up your protein powder, you can just eat your protein bar right away and make sure your nutrition is taken care of. So the post-workout nutrition plan stuff, I have yet to do a live stream on that, so we'll talk about that at a future date. But just make sure you have your post-workout nutrition plan, whatever it might be, whatever you've been training with. This after the race thing is more about the meal than anything else. So a lot of people after their race, they don't eat enough fat and protein, in my opinion. And this is the reason why this is important. Because on your race day, you are running a lot more differently than you normally would. You are more likely on a race day to lose your lean muscle mass, and the loss of that lean muscle mass makes it so that your body will respond in starvation mode mechanisms. So what that will do for the rest of the day is, look at that. Like I said, this one's a lot of rice, but look at that. It will make it so that you're more likely to go into starvation mode for the rest of the day. And the challenge ultimately ends up being is if you're in starvation mode for the rest of the day, you cannot control how you eat. Your body will be craving carbohydrates for the rest of the day uncontrollably. So that is a direct response to your starvation mode. That is why I tell people post-race, your post-race meal needs to have a good amount of protein and a good amount of fat in that meal specifically. The reason why is because we are using the protein and the fat for increased satiety to keep you full for a prolonged period of time after that race, so that your body can normalize and prevent itself from going into starvation mode. The fuller you are, the more the body will continue to recognize the amount of food that's in your stomach, and therefore it will force the body to prioritize its fat burning mechanisms from your fat cells. So not only are we preventing you from uncontrollably being able to eat for the rest of the day, which is a problem, but we are allowing the body to actually more efficiently burn fat. So a lot of people, they'll see me, and I have one guy in particular that he might be watching right now. I'm not too sure, but one guy in particular, like I've told him before, I'm like, hey, the greasy spoon diner breakfast food that you like, like the farmer's breakfast with the home fries, the bacon, and the eggs and all that. That is the best meal that you could be having post-race. And the reason why is because the protein goals are hit with that farmer's breakfast. Your carb goals are hit during that breakfast, as well as the fat. You really, really need the fat because from a satiety standpoint, fat stays in your digestive system the longest. That's why a lot of people can eat a lot of fried foods in one sitting, but then feel full, like so absolutely full for like 7 to 8 hours after the fact. And that's largely because the fats in the body, in the meal, slow down the rate of release of that meal for the rest of the day. So what you're fundamentally doing is forcing the body to use its own fat stores in response to everything, in response to the run, in order to continue to repair its body, repair all that kind of stuff, and just get you back on track, to be perfectly honest, with the rest of the day. So I highly advise people to have a higher protein and higher fat meal after their race, especially if it's a marathon. Like, I cannot even tell you how many lives it saves. Lives. Look at me being hyperbolic. Not lives, but like how many people feel more in control with more protein and more fat in after a race and something like that. Now you'll see what I'm doing is I'm wetting this knife down every single time I cut and then wiping it off so that the rice doesn't accumulate on the surface, and when I do the cuts for the sushi, it goes right through, as opposed to what a lot of people don't do is if they don't wipe the knife and don't clean the knife between cuts, then the sushi just gets clumped up and messy, and that's not good. I will also say that normally I don't cut my sushi. Normally I just eat it like a friggin' tube like this. Because I'm a savage, but because it's just more fun and a more practical thing to do. So I'm cutting it because we're on camera, and I'm cutting it because I'm going to take a photo of it and then post it to Insta. You know, that's what I do. It's what this whole thing's about, right? The social media. All right. So we're almost done here. I'm going to lay it out. We're going to present it in a little bit. And then we're going to have our things going, and then I'm going to eat a little bit of it. And all that different stuff. Okay. Everything's cut nicely. I'm going to present it now. Beautiful. Wow. Okay. So, I'm going to present this stuff. Sushi. Sushi. Now, I'm not going to eat all of this, obviously, because it's a lot of sushi, but I'm going to eat a good amount of it, at least, for dinner. And the reason why I like sushi is, like, the next day, my food is already kind of done. Now, I will say, sushi the next day, the rice gets hard. It doesn't stay well. So, like, I'm doing it knowing that. But if you're like, oh, I'm going to batch cook and, like, meal prep a whole bunch of sushi, don't do that. Because it gets to a point of, like, hard rice where you will not enjoy your sushi eating experience. So, please don't do that. This is more of an immediate eat food. Like, sushi does not keep well. It just does not. So, keep that in mind. Yay, look at that. Half the sushi we made. So, I'm going to take this. Oh, it's not supposed to go over there. And then, we choose one of these bowls. That's a nice one. And wasabi. This is light soy sauce. The reason why it's not in a soy sauce bottle is because I buy my soy sauce bulk, and then I siphon it off into this little guy because it saves money that way. All right. Beautiful. So remember, after the race, high protein, high fat. So have lunch with your friends, have like fun foods and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and enjoy your meal, you know? It's going to be good. It's going to be good. So for those of you that are running this weekend, good luck. Hopefully you see me on the course. I can't wait to see you. And I'm going to cheer, and hopefully Bruce is going to be there, cheering along too. But he's a scared boy, so he doesn't like it. I'm going to take him home, and then you won't see him, but it's okay. It is what it is. All right. So, I mean, like, one of my, like, after-race meals that I really enjoy, is that farmer's breakfast I was telling you about. Nothing beats bacon, eggs. Don't love the home fries, to be perfectly honest. Hash browns are different. Hash browns are good. Home fries suck to me. I don't think there's... Like, it's not a good ratio. Like, French fries are good. But the thing with the French fries is even then they could get soggy, right? Home fries are always soggy as far as I'm concerned because there's not enough crunch on the surface as far as I'm concerned. Hash browns, because of how much surface area there is for the potato, superior product. Like, awesome. It's awesome. Like, the thinner you can get the potato and then you fry it up, the better it is to me, in my opinion. That's just a culinary thing, right? That's just a culinary thing. But that's what I like to do. And then if you can add pancakes on top of that, oh yeah, that's good. That is good stuff. So yeah, that's basically it. That's what that's nutrition for the race. So hopefully anyone running this weekend, if you have questions, concerns, or anything like that, because there's not a lot of people watching online right now. There's like 2 people watching. Love you. The same 2 people that just show up every single week. You are the best, and I really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get more questions sometime in the future. But like I said, I'm building a stream right now. I'm trying to get, the important thing is to be consistent with it and to make sure that it's, I'm having fun, and which I am. Cooking live on camera is a lot of fun. It slows me down, obviously, but it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. So I'm just going to take a picture of this real quick, and let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. So we're going to post that to Instagram in a little bit. But, I had fun tonight. I had a lot of fun tonight. So, that being said, thank you very much for watching. I'm probably going to end this. This is probably like one of my shorter streams. Like, the other streams went to like 3 hours, which, it is what it is. This one is at 1 hour and 45 minutes, not including the 10 minutes beforehand where like the stream is starting soon kind of stuff that hits. So, that being said, I am going to eat 1 or 2 of these in front of you, and then I'm probably going to sign off, clean up, and, just watch some TV tonight, or maybe play some video games. I don't know. Destiny 2 has been pretty good recently. Got the new expansion, because I committed to the day 1 raid, so looking forward to that experience in June. But now, oh my god, I love it. I love that seafood hot dog so much. It's really good. So anyways, I'm going to get going now, because I said all I had to say, all I prepped to say. So please let me know if you have any questions or concerns down below in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Really does a lot to help me out. Share this video with anyone running this weekend. There's going to be a lot more races going on that I'm going to try to target, and nutrition strategies and all that kind of stuff throughout the summer, throughout the year. So stay tuned. There's a lot more coming your way, a lot more in the idea box, but right now I just want to build a little bit of consistency, get the reps in. You know what I mean? Just get the reps in, and be able to really get comfortable on camera again, making content for you all and talking about nutrition, making sure that everyone gets good access to nutrition recommendations and all that kind of stuff. And stop on by the chat. Let me know if there's anything you'd like to see, any questions or concerns. I have a lot of ideas in the books, but 1 episode per week is all I'm able to do right now. But either way, thank you very much for stopping by, for watching the rewatch and all that kind of stuff. You're awesome. So keep it up. And if you have questions or concerns and you want like specific nutrition recommendations and advice, feel free to hit me up. You can see my website is in that like lower box over here. Yeah, my website's over here, and the Insta's over here. I'll see you soon. But thank you for making this a fun stream again, and hopefully you enjoy the sushi that I made. Check that out. Not bad, eh? Not bad for homemade. Cheers!